We're having a party. Yes, yes, yes. Good morning, everybody. It's Stephen here for Bland Designs, and welcome to my weekly vlog number 174 for Monday, June the 29th, 2020, or the 110th day of my isolation. And it's starting to get to me, okay? We'll come to that later. But you may have seen the balloons in the teaser. Well, we had a party this weekend, and I'm going to tell you more about that a little bit later on, and I'm going to tell you about a Zoom thing that we did, and yeah, so lots of things to talk to you about, but let's get right into my current projects. This one behind me you have seen before. This is my diamond quilt. Diamond Bright, I think, is what the title of it is, and this is the one that's all done with the paper foundation piecing, just with strips, scrap strips. And this was a quilt that was put up as a challenge on the Quilter's Way, Kim Jameson Hurst's site that I belong to, and I think it turned out pretty neat. It's not a hard thing to do. It's not a huge quilt. It's just a lap, basically. But when I showed it to you last time, I don't think I had it bound, and it is bound now, and I didn't have it quilted, and it is now quilted. And you probably can't see the quilting very well in the video. I just did walking foot wavy lines. You can see them down here, and I did them in the center part. I did them horizontally and vertically. You might get a better look at this if you take a look at the back. Let me get untangled here. So you can see maybe a little better the quilting on the back. And it turned out pretty good. Yeah, it's a great way to use up your scraps too, and it's very colorful. So I have this sitting in my hallway by my front door. Just playing with my cord here for a second. And it's sitting on my deacon's bench. I'm running out of places to put quilts, I can tell you that. I have a guest bed full of quilts. I have a quilt rack full of quilts. I have chairs in my rec room with quilts on the back of them. Now on the back of my couch in my rec room. They're everywhere. So they're like rabbits. They just breed. And we're not done there. What else am I working on? Well, guess what? I'm working on another quilt. Yeah, yesterday I was feeling really kind of antsy yesterday, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about these antsy feelings near the end of the vlog. But anyways, and I didn't know what to do with myself. I started reading a couple of magazines that I'm far behind on, that are art magazines that I get. And I was sitting out under our deck. It's our patio area that I've talked about before. It's all like screened in kind of a thing, and it was a really nice day yesterday. So I was sitting out there, and I just felt like I should do something. So I grabbed one of my smaller sewing machines, not my main sewing machine, and took it out there onto the patio and just grabbed one of my box of scraps and just started sewing pieces together. And as I was doing that, I came across a couple of trial blocks or sample blocks I probably made just out of scrap fabric just to try the design to see how it works out. And these were in my scrap box. So I thought, why don't I take those and cut them down into squares, and I can add some fabric to them, and I was just in that mood to do mindless sewing where I wasn't really thinking. So this is what I came up with. And these are just random blocks cut out of bigger blocks, strips of fabric added to them. You can see I wasn't even too concerned about how straight the fabric was. And they're all different colors. Mind you, I do tend to lean towards the blue, so there's some teal and some yellow in that one. So I ended up making 12 of these 9.5-inch square blocks. And what my idea is, this is going to be a very scrappy quilt. I am just going to put these all together. I'm going to probably border them all with a little bit of sashing. I'm thinking of just using a white for that. We'll see. Add probably a couple of borders to it, and then I've got a quilt top done. And on this one, I think, because it is just made from scraps, and I'm really not that concerned about it, I think what I might end up doing in terms of quilting it is I'll try my hand at free motion quilting, which I am not good at. But will it really matter? And I already have a name for this quilt too, since I took larger blocks, added to them and cut them down, that kind of thing. I'm calling it the Broken Block quilt. Original, eh? So anyways, that I was working on. Another project I'm working on is this Christmas banner. And I'll see if I can find a decent picture of what the final product looks like. This shows you, there are 32 tiles, they call them, in this, and this is the layout diagram. I mean, of course, there won't be the white spaces between them. They'll all come together, but they make this really cool mural. But with it having 32 tiles, the tiles each take about 40 minutes or so to make, probably a little more like an hour by the time you do your thread changes and everything like that. And so here is one of the tiles, and here's the second tile, and you can see once they get sewn together how they fit together to make this big mural. Now remember, or wall hanging, called it a mural, but it's a wall hanging, but remember there are 32 of these. Okay, so this is going to take quite a while. Now I am doing it on the embroidery machine. Have I got that one right? Yeah, I do. Yeah, you know the story of my embroidery machine. You probably know it way too well because I've told you a lot about it. Now I've got the two of these mixed up. I think that's tile 2. Yeah. No, that's tile 1. This is tile 2. Yeah, this is tile 2. I'm putting little sticky notes on them so I know which one is which. Of course, I got the map here. I can probably figure it out. But this makes life a little easier when I don't have to figure it out. Okay, so those are some of the projects I'm working on. And over the weekend, I discovered a site I had never heard of before called John Deere. Not the people who make the farm equipment, but this is an embroidery site. One of the people on the Quilter's Way goes to this one all the time, and I had seen that he had created these masks, an in the hoop mask. Now I've done in the hoop masks before, face masks, okay, for the COVID thing. And they kind of look like this, you know, the one with the pleats and everything. And quite frankly, I find that these don't fit all that well, which could just be me when I'm making them, but this style I like much better. Okay, and this is all done in the hoop using the embroidery function of the machine. You can rattle off one of these in about 20 minutes, I'd say, once I figured out the pattern on it. But I think it makes a much nicer mask, and it fits so much better than the other ones. And now I can rob a bank. So I made one for me, I made one for Walter, and I might make a few more down the road as well, because it's good to have a couple of them. But these ones with the pleats, they're a bit of a bitch to sew too, getting your pleats straight for one thing. And this one, you don't have to worry about that. So, which is the new fashion look, right, with these masks. So that's what I've been up to. So that takes us to the YouTube channel of the week. And this is another one of those BBC game shows that I have just fallen in love with. They're amazing entertainment, I think, and just always very educational as well. This one maybe not so educational, but it's just fun to watch, and it's called Would I Lie to You? This week's YouTube channel is another one in my continuing series of YouTube channels that highlight BBC comedy game shows, and this one is really great, called Would I Lie to You? Now you'll actually find these all over the YouTube universe, but if you want a good collection of these shows, check out that Mitch and Mac collection. They have many of the seasons of this particular show. I think the latest season they have up is season 13. I could be wrong. There might be other seasons beyond that, but I'm not sure. But you will really enjoy the show. Basically, it's for each team to spot the liar on the opposite team. And the stories they tell on various subjects that are hilarious, well, that's really where the comedy comes from. So if you want something really entertaining while you're trapped indoors during this COVID crisis, check out Would I Lie to You? So as always, the link to that YouTube channel is in the show notes below, as is the book of the week as well. And you will find a link not to Stephen and Walter Live per se. We did not do a Stephen and Live Walter Stephen and Live Walter. Okay, really. It's not quite 9 o'clock in the morning, and this is just coffee, okay? Let me back it up. Stephen and Walter Live. We did not do our usual weekly broadcast on Sunday this week because we did a special Zoom meeting. Yes, I have a prescription, a subscription. Okay, I'm really off this morning. I have a subscription to Zoom. And so we decided to try it, and I made this announcement last week about anybody who wanted to join us. So we had about 12 people join us. It was great. It was so nice to see the faces behind the names. We did just chat it. One thing I should have done, and it was pointed out to me after the fact, and I wanted to do this, I forgot all about doing it, I guess because in the process of trying to run the technology to make sure everything was up and running, because we had a couple of little snags, but nothing major, I forgot to have people introduce themselves. I guess it's because I'm so used to seeing most of these people every week that I just felt like they knew everybody else. So if we do another one of these, and we will do another one of these down the road, I'll make sure that everybody introduces himself as well. But it went off very nicely. It's funny when you see people's faces, how you picture them when all you see is what they type, and then what they actually look like. And yeah, I have a vision of what most of these people look like, but no, none of that was true. Anyways, I thought it was a good session. It worked out very well, and I have shared it on the channel. It's called Stephen and Walter Live Zoom Get Together. I got everybody that was on there their permission. They said it was okay to record our session and to post it. So I asked that first because if anybody was upset about doing that, I wouldn't have put it up. So I got everybody's permission, and you can watch it if you wish, if you want to get a sense of how it worked out. So that's in place of Stephen and Walter Live. The reason we didn't do a Stephen and Walter Live on Sunday is because, well, basically we're out of stuff to talk about. We talked about everything on the Zoom. And I was feeling a little worn out, and you'll know why in a moment. So we just left it. So next week we will have our regular Stephen and Walter Live, though. Okay, and I don't know when we'll have the next Zoom, but we'll talk about that and figure that out, and maybe do it as an art attack or something like that. I haven't decided yet. I'm still playing with this technology. Okay, so that takes me to what's pissing me off this week. Well, talking about technology and stuff, let's talk about they're back. The duck cleaners, the scam artists, the people who call you several times a day trying to get you to buy a product or to tell you that, that the Canadian revenue, probably do the same thing in the States, they're after you. They're going to send the cops to your house because you owe big bucks to the government. You've got the ones now, the most recent scam I heard about on the news is people offering you these jobs, telephone service jobs, but there's somehow that they send you money or you have to send them money, and if they send you money by check, you take it to the bank and you cash it, and then I don't know how they make money from that, how it works, but it's a scam. It's all a scam. These people have too much time on their hands. I had just said to Walter about a week ago, it's funny. We haven't had any of those duct cleaning calls that we usually get 3 of a day, or some of the other scams in a while. Well, they're back because apparently, this was on the news as well, I guess a lot of the call centers shut down at the beginning of the COVID crisis. Well, they're back. And of course, many of these call centers are in India or Nigeria or someplace like that. And, their restrictions on COVID and that, I think they're a little bit looser about them. I don't know, maybe not. Obviously not as loose as the United States. We won't go there. But now they're back again. And they're back with a fury. One day alone, I had 3 calls for duct cleaning. And I get so pissed off with them. I'm not nice. Why should I be nice? They're bugging me. So I basically use some foul language on one of them, and then they start using the foul language back. And then finally, one of them called up and goes, and they're being very friendly at first. Oh, hello, sir. How are you today? I know it's a duct cleaner. I also know these are fake calls because on my call ID comes the letter V at the beginning of a very long number. Well, nobody has that kind of number. So I don't know why that comes up as a V. It may have to do that they're doing voice over internet protocol or whatever they call that. And that's how it's identified on our phone system. I don't know, but that's how you know. And Walter says it's a V number. Don't answer it. I know I shouldn't, but I still answer it. And I'm still trying to think of a way of something witty I can say back to them. But then again, that's a waste of my time, isn't it? Because these guys aren't hanging around. The other day when one of them called, as soon as I heard him, I says, oh yeah, you're calling about duct cleaning, aren't you? Well, I don't, click. He already knew. You know, you'd think they'd get discouraged with all of this. But what pisses me off is the fact that why is it that our phone system, we have a very sophisticated phone system in this country. Bell Canada is pretty much the biggest provider of this service from coast to coast. They provide television, they provide internet as well. Why can they not develop something in their technology that figures out that these calls are scamming and put in a block? In fact, they were legislated by our government to do something about that, and it went into effect in about December of 2019. And it did work, whatever they did. It did block them, but they're back again. So obviously whatever they created then, these scammers worked around it. The only thing I can think of is that there must be an awful lot of people that are being scammed. Because if this was not working for these scammers, don't you think they'd give it up and try something different? I don't know. But it just pisses you off. And what really pisses me off is that there's people out there in the world who are trying to take advantage of other people, other people's ignorance or downright stupidity, or, you know, older people who, you know, might not understand fully what's going on with this, and they get threatened and scared, and, you know, rather than going to the authorities, they just decide to pay the money. I can't understand how anybody would pay for something in gift cards. You know, they tell you on some of them, go to your local Walmart, get like $3,000 worth of iTunes gift cards or something like that. Who takes a payment for that? Or even when they tell you that it's the government and you owe them money and everything, but they want to be paid in gift cards. I mean, I would think a red light should go off at that point, right? But apparently it doesn't, because they keep making the calls. So there's got to be people out there who are succumbing to this. And I don't get it. I really don't get it. But I think it's just nasty. It's very nasty to take advantage of people like that. You know, right now there are people without jobs too. And they're playing on this weakness right now. You know, there are people from lower incomes, I'm sure, that have lost their jobs and they probably don't have any revenue coming in at all. And they're desperate. So someone comes, and that's the latest COVID or the latest scheme with the COVID situation. They're offering them an ability to make lots and lots of money. And, you know, you could see how some people, you know, they're not making anything right now. They're not bringing in. They're desperate. They're taking a chance. Well, these other idiots on the end of the line doing this are taking advantage of another human being. And that's what pisses me off. That they're playing on people's emotions. That they're playing on their grief and their hard times and their depression and the whole bit and using it. That's just nasty. You know, I would love to be able to get my hands on one of these guys. And let's go back to the Middle Ages, shall we? And let's tie his arms and his legs up one to each car and drive in opposite directions. I think they call that quartering or drawing and quartering or something like that, or whatever. Doesn't matter what it was called, would be effective. Do that once, and you'll not have another call, I'm sure. Although I suppose that's still considered murder, isn't it? Might be a flaw in my plan for that. But that's what's pissing me off this week, that these people are taking advantage of vulnerable individuals at a time when our world is in crisis just to turn a buck. Get a real job. Work for a living. Really. I hear McDonald's is always hiring. Whatever. Okay, moving on. New products. Well, I haven't bought that much, but I did get some fabric. There's a place in our area. I think I mentioned this last week. They used to have a brick and mortar store, fabric store, quilting store, and they shut it down about a year and a half ago, maybe even almost 2 years ago. And now they've opened up an online store, and they just opened it. So I went on, and they had some interesting fabrics, and I told you that last week, and I was waiting for the fabrics to come. Well, they came. Yay. So I thought I'd show you what I bought. Now, these are a little bit out of my comfort zone because I don't usually buy fabric of these colors and styles. But I saw them, and I thought, they're just fun. And so I bought them. And some of them are Tula Pink, and Tula Pink is famous for, it's a Tula Pink, for bold colors and very interesting designs. I think that's supposed to be a bee or something like that. And I got it in that colorway, I got it in that colorway, and I got it in that colorway. And the thing about these, yes, they're bold and bright, but when you cut them up and use them in a quilt, it's a totally different look. So, I'm not worried about how they look in this form. They'll look good in a quilt. And then I bought a color that I never buy. Pink, and I believe this is Tula Pink as well, and I think this one's the Owl collection or something, and you can't really see it very well, but if you look at it and stare at it long enough, you'll see a stylized owl emerge out of it. See if I can find him here. Yeah, there. If you look, you look down right in here. That's the owl. So you have to stare at it for a minute, but you can see his eyebrows or feathers and his eyes. His eyes are shut, little beak in the center there. So once you cut it up into a quilt, you won't see that unless you did fussy cutting. And I don't intend to do fussy cutting on these. These will go in as a block. But of course she had some K-Facet, and I love his fabric, so I decided I was getting a little low on that, so I bought some of his. Again, he has big prints, he has bold colors, but when you cut these up and put them into a quilt, not a problem. And I also got this one, but I got this one free because I pointed out a problem in her ordering scheme. And I think I mentioned that last week too. And in appreciation for me pointing that out, she gave me a free yard of fabric of my choice, which I thought was really nice. Will I order from her again? Yes, I will. I'll keep looking at her site. She's getting new stuff all the time up there. Another fabric, I was into my regular quilting store, and I was getting some other stuff for backing for my quilts. But then I saw this one, and you know how I like butterflies. So I got a couple of meters of this as well. I always love it when I go into the fabric store and I buy all these different fabrics, and they always ask me, so what are you making with this? And I say, I don't know. I have no idea. Most of the time I buy them because they're pretty. I collect fabric. That's a small portion of the fabric that I have. It's a sickness, really. It really is, being a fabric whore. But I love fabric. And eventually it'll become something. What is it? There's an expression I heard once or something. He who dies with the most fabric wins. I suppose you could say that about art supplies too, and crafting supplies. Well, I'm going to win a lot in both of those areas. Okay, so that takes us to the book of the week. handmade books. Now, I've talked about other books in this series about handmade, about bookbinding and things like this. But this is one I just came across the other day in my stash, of course. And you can see I did some marking of pages. Now, this is a more professional book. If you look at the cover, the books they're showing are hardcover books, okay? And the other week I talked about that really big, thick, very professional book about the whole thing, the art of bookbinding. Well, this one is sort of on the same scale. Well, it is on the same scale, except it's a little bit more cut down version. A little bit more manageable if that, cracky the spine. A little bit more manageable if you're just getting into this. It lays out your tools. It's less intimidating, but nevertheless, it is showing you how to do it like a professional, and it talks about different types of bindings and all that kind of thing. So, if you're serious about getting into making hardcover journals, which are really neat to make, but they are so much more involved than making a journal that you see what most people are doing on, YouTube videos and things like this. This is more for the person who wants to go beyond that and actually learn the art of professional bookbinding. Now, this book is by Robert Shepard. It's called Handmade Books, An Introduction to Bookbinding. And at the time that I bought it, it said it only had, I don't know what I paid for it in Canadian dollars, but it said it was $16.95 US. Looked it up, and you can get it on Amazon. And the price on Amazon is $14.98 Canadian. This is Amazon.ca, plus whatever the shipping is. So it's a little less than what I probably paid for it at the time, but it is still available. So like I said, if you're intimidated by that other book I showed you that had like pages and pages and pages of information, but you want to get more into serious bookbinding, then something like this might be more manageable and definitely cheaper than that other book. I think that one worked out to something like $56 or something like that, plus shipping. Okay, so that's our book of the week. And take us now to, speaking of making books, my continuing series here on building my grimoire. Okay, so the next part of my booklet, and I'm getting close to the end of this, of the grimoire, was to do this set of pages. Now, this book, as I've said before, is getting very, very thick. So on this page, I decided to use one of Tim Holtz's found relatives, and I used some of these letter cards that are part of the Tim Holtz collection as well. I'm not sure what they call them. And I had it spell out the word spirits, and you'll see that I've used it on some of the pages here. Now, this section is actually a section of the last few pages that I was able to separate from the album itself and make it into its own little slip-in booklet. And the idea here is that there's plenty of space so that the person could write down their own spells or whatever. And it slips right into this built-in pocket. You know that this album that I'm using has some built-in pockets on the side, and it just slips right in here and folds over. So it was basically one of the sections, or a couple of the sections, that I was able to separate from the spine of this book and use it in this way. A little crooked here. It's a tight fit, but it does work. Okay, so this was a tag pocket, so again, carrying on the theme with the found relatives idea, I just put these on the tag, put a ribbon on it which will stick out from the top. Nothing. I didn't put anything on this page mainly because I'm running out of ideas for it. But there we go, the tag, and again spelled out the words hex on here. And so this just folds in. It can stay in here as such, or it can be pulled out as I showed you a minute ago. So how many pages does that leave me now in the grimoire? Well, flip it over. I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, counting the back cover. I was thinking of removing these, and I may still do that. I can't remove this section because it's all attached with what I just put in there, so I will have to leave that. We'll see. If I put really flat things in here, we'll see what happens, because there's how it shuts up now. But it does shut up. And shut up, that sounds funny. But as you can see, it is a thick, overstuffed grimoire right now. So, events in the past week. Update on my mother, she's fine. I'm still having this trouble with her and her phone. She picks it up and I don't know what she's doing with it, but Walter's theory is she's taking it and she's plastering it against her cheek. I can't hear her. I can hear her very faintly in the background. She claims that there's something wrong with the phone. And I don't just dismiss that because there could be. But then I say to her, well, Mom, move your phone down a little bit or over. And when she does that, I can hear her. Now I thought, well, is there a short in the phone? But the phone is wireless. So it's not like a question of the wire having a short in it. Is the battery going in it? Well, I tell her, do you put it on the cradle? Oh, yeah, she does. But if it was the battery going in it, it would probably just cut right out eventually and nothing would work. And then when she moves it, she's fine. And it continues to be fine. So I think it's her. I can't get over there to see her still because everything's under heavy restriction for getting over there. And I explained that, I think, last week. And so there we are. But in the meantime, yeah, I think my mother's getting some situational dementia because she's not getting out. Well, she can't go out. But she says some things that are, well, they're kind of funny, but it's kind of sad because I said something to her. I have nothing really to talk to her about. Nothing new and exciting happens in her life, basically. And lately, not a heck of a lot's been new and exciting in my life either with this whole COVID thing. So we're all kind of in isolation for one reason or another, right? So what do you talk about? So I try to make conversation with my mother, and I'm basically scraping to the bottom of the barrel. So I said something about, had she heard from anybody? I always ask her that. No, she hadn't heard. Maybe she should give them a call. And I said, well, Mom, why don't you? And I said, if you have trouble dialing the phone, the staff there will help you out. She has a little book, if she can find it, that has all the phone numbers and addresses. In the day, people used to keep little address books. Well, my mother has that. And she has phone numbers in there and the whole bit. But I have a feeling she might have some trouble actually doing the dialing. Her hands don't work that well anymore. So, but she can the staff will be more than happy to help her out with the situation. But she says she doesn't like to ask. Well, I said to her, well, that's why you're there, Mom. They're there to help you. Ask. If you don't ask, they don't know. You got to mention these things to her. And she goes, well, I suppose. I always get that in. Well, I suppose. Well, do something about it, Mother. Anyways, she made this one comment about, yeah, she hadn't been out lately. You can't go out, Mother. But I don't say that to her. I think in her mind, she, well, really, if you're basically trapped someplace, then I am sure your mind goes back to the days when you did other things, when you were younger and stuff like that. So Walter's been telling me for a long time, he thinks she's got a little touch of dementia. Maybe. I call it situational dementia because there is such a thing, I guess, that when you've been institutionalized for a long time and you don't have a lot of stimulus, then it's a form of dementia that you can have from that. I just hope I never go that way, but never say never. So anyways, she's fine. I worry about her a lot. And that gets to me, and I'm sure many of you out there are in the same boat as well. That's what happens when you have aging parents. So update on my sewing machine. Well, they still have it. So on the weekend, just to get out more than anything, I called up the quilting store, made an appointment, because you have to make an appointment to shop, and Walter and I went over to pick up a few things. I just wanted to get out of the house, right? And it's, with the way they do it there, it's pretty safe. So, we take all the precautions and everything. So when I just walked in the door, and one of the staff was talking to the owner of the store, Shirley. You've heard me talk about Shirley before. And I guess she wanted my telephone number, wanted Ellie to look it up on the store's system or whatever. And Ellie said, well, he's here. Do you want to talk to him? So that was kind of serendipitous, right? So I spoke to her, and she's talking about my machine. She wants me to bring in on Thursday the embroidery unit from her machine, because you know I have her machine right now I'm using. Because this is where it gets a little funny. Well, not ha-ha funny, but just funny weird. We had always been telling her that we thought the problem with my machine had to do with the embroidery unit, the arm, because I caught by accident the edge of a quilt that I was quilting on it, and it pulled on that arm, like majorly. And that's where, well, I had some of these problems before that happened, but this was at this point where I was having all of these major problems that I've been suffering from. And I had taken the machine in, and they cleaned out the arm. They said, well, there was some thread in there, and they found a pin. Okay, so supposedly it was working fine. And when I got it home and tried it all, it worked for a few minutes, and then bang, it was right back to tearing its guts out again. So we mentioned this to her as they were exploring this, and it seemed to have gone on deaf ears. It was like, no, it couldn't be that. So they're the experts, so I figured, okay, well, I just thrown the suggestion out there. But they've tried everything, and they're still having the same problems I was having with it. So finally, she says, can you bring in the embroidery unit from the store machine? Because they were going to hook it up to my machine and see if it made a difference. Apparently, she had been doing some FaceTime with some of the people at the Janome head office about the problem. And maybe this suggestion came from them. I don't know. So she said, if this isn't the problem, if we can't get it fixed this time, then she says it's going to go to the head office. The head office for Canada is in Oakville, which is on the far side of Toronto, the west side of Toronto. So it's not really that far away. So we'll see. I told her, though, in the meantime, I have been doing embroidery, like you saw those things I showed you earlier, all on her machine. I have not had any problems with it. And here's what's really ironic about it. I'm using her setup. I'm using the stuff that Janome in the book says you shouldn't do. I'm using the red dot bobbin, not the yellow dot bobbin. They say use the yellow dot bobbin. I'm using the red dot bobbin because that's what she used. I'm using her type of needles, the Janome. And no problem. I mean, I've had a couple of thread breaks, but that's normal. But no problems whatsoever. So I suspect that really the problem lies in the embroidery unit itself. I'm not overly concerned about when I'll get the machine back because I've been using hers. I'm a little concerned now, though, that if I take this embroidery unit in, well, I am going to take it in, that without that, I can't do any embroidery at all. Now, that's not really a big problem, except that, I like to mix up what I'm doing. Do a little sewing, do a little embroidery, stuff like that. And if she has the embroidery unit, and how long she's going to hang on to that, I don't know. Maybe once they test it out, I'll get her embroidery unit back. If they can't fix mine, they have to send my system to the head office. I don't know. We'll see. But right now it is what it is, and she's working on it, and I appreciate that. And I've said that before. So that's the machine. Zoom meeting. Okay, I already talked about our Zoom meeting that we had on Stephen and Walter Live, but we also had another Zoom session a couple hours later, and this was a party. We decided to throw a Zoom Pride party because this past weekend is traditionally the big weekend in Toronto for the Gay Pride Parade, and it attracts over 1 million people every year. I think New York's is probably the only one in North America that's bigger than Toronto's. And I'm not even sure if New York is bigger than Toronto's. I'd have to look up the stats. But anyways, it's huge. In fact, it's a zoo. We stopped going years ago because you can't move. There's just way too many people at this thing. But it's a biggie in Toronto. And of course, this year, couldn't have it. I think they did some form of it virtually, but I think they just had entertainers and things like that. I didn't bother to tune into that. But we decided to have our own little pride party via Zoom. So we had 3 other couples, and it was actually a lot of fun. Now, I did do a lot of planning beforehand. It's the school teacher in me, but I prepared like discussion questions in case things started to lull. Because basically, if you're at a party, you sort of, roam around the room, you talk to other people, stuff like that. A Zoom party, you're kind of sitting there staring at a screen at other people staring back at you. So you got to have something to do. So we had discussion. We had some videos, funny videos that were a theme for the party. And we had some games, some, name the tune, a couple of other trivia type games. These were things I found on YouTube, and I was able through Zoom to do what they call a screen share. So I would just flip over to the screen share, and we were seeing, they could see. And so, and we were playing, I think I mentioned a few weeks ago about that BBC game show that I reviewed the YouTube channel for called Taskmaster. Yeah. So Walter and I were the taskmasters, and we assigned points for whatever. The points really didn't count, although they didn't know that, because at the beginning of all this I said there was a prize for the person at the end of the night with the most points. Actually, everybody won, and there was a prize. The next day I sent the prizes out. I was able to go online and get gift certificates from Tim Hortons. Tim Hortons is a coffee donut type shop that there's one on every corner in Canada. Okay. And you could send them off via email. And so we gave them a $10, each couple got a $10 Tim Hortons gift certificate that they can use, if they can go through the drive-through or whatever, or order online or stuff like that. So I always like to have prizes. When I throw a party, I like to have things that we do as well and, have prizes. But I think we Zoomed for about 4 hours, from about 7 to about 11 o'clock. And I think everybody had a good time. We had a good time, but we were tired afterwards. So when Sunday rolled around for Stephen and Walter Live, that's why we didn't do Stephen and Walter Live. Besides the fact that we had discussed everything we would have probably discussed on Stephen and Walter Live in the Zoom. So, anyways, that was fun. I did not record the session with the Pride Party because, no. Never mind. Okay. What's coming up? 1 week from this Thursday, I finally get this cut. And I'll be so happy about that. Although I am getting better with my hairdryer. It's been years since I used it, but now I've been using it on a regular basis. I'm keeping the beard, but I want this cut. So that'll be something to look forward to. In fact, Walter has an appointment a week from this Wednesday as well. And he came home with some kind of product that you put in your hair and you can it's sort of like slicking it back. But, Walter doesn't have that much hair on his head. But anyways, he got this, and if it makes him happy, that's fine with it. It looks okay when he puts it in. So it just adds control. It's sort of like a hair gel of some sort. I don't know. But anyways, he's got that. So that's how he's managing his mop. But boy, it would be nice to get a cut. I can tell you that. So just as a final note, and I'm sure other people are feeling this too, I've been feeling a little depressed lately. Not something that's incapacitating or whatever, but it's just like it makes you start saying to yourself, what's the point of getting out of bed? What have I got planned? I'm the kind of person that has to keep busy all the time, and I usually do. I usually am very busy all the time with my projects and that. But the last couple of days, it's been like, why do I want to do that? But I've been forcing myself not to just throw myself down on the couch and turn on the boob tube. But I don't like this feeling. And I suspect this is one of the symptoms of COVID isolation as well. I want to get out. But I'm not going to risk my health, for one thing. Yes, things here in my province are starting to open up. We're in stage 2. But I'm afraid. I really am. I'm paranoid of going out. And at the same time, I want to go out. And that's really eating at me. And right now, in the States, they've opened up so many things so quickly, and the cases are going out the window. I mean, just the ceiling's the limit. The other day, I heard that in Florida, where they opened everything right up, they had in one day, they had 9,000 new cases of COVID. And that's predictable, because that's what they've been warning us about. If we open things up too quickly, we're going to make things worse. And that's what's happening there. So, but the problem is, we have the city of Toronto next door to us. And in Ontario, that's where the most cases have been. Yes, it's a large city. It's our largest one in Canada. Okay? So, yes, you would expect more cases there. But people in Toronto are being stupid. Because everything's opened up, because it's summer, because the weather's been nice. They're congregating at the beaches. They're congregating in the parks. They're redefining what the bubble is. And I think that was a mistake that the government made about saying about this extending your bubble. They meant with people in your own household and relatives that, are, safe, I guess. But other people are getting their friends involved and things like that. And they're partying together. And yeah, I'd like to be able to do that too. But at the risk of dying, it's not worth it. But all of these things are churning inside of me right now, and I'm trying not to let it get to me. This is where being a pessimist actually works for you, because I tend to be a little bit of a pessimist. And so, I always expect the worst, but if I get something less than the worst, I'm happier about it. So I have said that we're going to be in this situation I think we're going to be in this situation till the end of the year, quite frankly. I do. And I think even thinking that is contributing to my anxiety and my thoughts of depression. Just got to get a grip, though, and move on. So, something like getting my hair cut in a week and a half's time, that's something to look forward to. I'm excited about that. Who would have thought that getting your hair cut a year ago, would I have thought that getting your hair cut was going to be a major life-changing event, something to really look forward to and was going to be exciting? It is now. But anyways, I hope you have a more exciting week than I've been having, and I hope you're hanging in there. And as I always say now, it's become my motto, and it's become a lot of people's mottos. Stay healthy, stay safe, stay in. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.